So they think I've just had a shark attack and I'm hopping out with one leg, which was the maddest thing. Like, that's the craziest reaction I've ever seen to my disability. And talking about cool, that was like the first kind of Paralympic sport I saw where I saw like cool disabled people. And I was like, yo, I got the chance to do something probably, I would say, one of the most meaningful things I'll ever do in my life, which was to do Grenfell in the words of the survivors, verbatim playing at the National, and then we had a chance to take it to New York, at St. Anne's Theatre, and tell the story, like the actual words of the survivors.
What's going on, people? Welcome to Jordan Jarrett-Bryan's The Coolest Disabled in the World. I am him is me. I am both of those people. Yes, I said it. Standing on chest, I am the world's coolest disabled. Prove me wrong. This podcast, you know how we do by now. I get fantastic people on who are doing fantastic things, and we discuss those amazing things, really. And what I want to try and work out is, how cool are those people, and can they out-cool yours truly? They can't. But let's give it a try. If you don't try, you never get. You never know. You've got to try a thing, innit? And I've got someone on the pod who I'm pretty sure will think that he can out-cool me. I mean, he can't, but he's definitely going to think, because he's a very confident young man. And if he's definitely going to think he can out-cool me. And he's up there. I ain't going to lie. He's definitely up there. I'm not going to hate. He's up there. So he might give me a run for my money. He's a very good friend of mine. Multiple Paralympic competitor. He's a movie star now. He's going to smash it up in Hollywood, and just a general dope human being. I'm talking about the fantastic Gaz Choudhry. Talk to me, brother. How are you doing, sir?
Yo, what's going on?
You good?
You know what? I like how you dissed, but then you end up.
You see what I did there?
So
see what I did there? See what I did?
That's how you dissolve people, isn't it? I see how you going on.
That's how we do. Listen, we've got lots to get into, Gaz, right? Before we get into all of that, I ask all my guests to start off with to self-rate themselves in terms of their coolness. So out of 10, what would you say, with everything in the pot, what would you say your number out of 10 is?
I'm always pedantic, so I want to know what cool means first before I answer. What is cool?
It's not some philosophical. It's not some philosophical. You know. Just give me a number.
Accurate. You know what I mean? This is going out to the world. I want to be accurate. Stand like you stood on. You know what I mean? Stood on business. I want to stand on business, but I need to know, what do you mean by cool? And I'll tell you the actual answer.
I'll throw it back to you. You define what you think cool is, because cool is just an individual perception of what you think is something that is great and is fun and is attractive. So, what mine is different to yours. So, according to you, what's your number? What do you think cool is, and what do you think your coolness number is?
I think cool is me. Then there's no number. Like, I'm off the scale.
There's no number. Jesus.
The coolest of the cool.
All right, for the sake of the pod.
Me, it is me. I am the coolest.
For the sake of the pod, we'll go with 7, right? We'll go with 7. We'll go 7 out of 10. We'll go with 7, but you know what? We'll come back to that. We're gonna have a chat. We're gonna come back to it at the end of the pod, and we're gonna see if 7 was fair or unfair. Right? We'll do that.
Well, this is some manosphere type stuff right now.
Is it who?
7.5. 7 is too easy.
We don't do
6.5 or 7.5.
All right, 6.5 then. 6.5. We'll go 6.5
right.
then. Yeah. I joke. Listen, Gaz, I think most people who will know you for being one of the best wheelchair basketball players in the world. I've known you through basketball now for 20 plus years, but our friendship and brotherhood kind of extends well beyond the court. And I want to get into some things, because there's so many things that I do think make you cool. But let's go way back in the time. Blackstreet Star, right? And I want to go back to when I remember first meeting you. And I want you to when you remember the first time you met me. The first time I remember meeting you was, I've forgotten where you were playing for Hounslow, and I was playing for Hackney Sparrows, wheelchair basketball team.
Yeah.
And for listeners and viewers, they were two of the 3 or 4 London-based wheelchair basketball teams, right? And we had a game against your team. I think it was one of your first or second teams. And I didn't actually play you, but played one of your other teams. Anyway, your team had multiple teams. So you were in, I think, the junior team because you were seen as the hot boy. Sparrows only had one team, I think, at that time. So I was just in the one team, right? And I remember seeing you on the corner and hearing about you, but didn't kind of pay too much attention. But I remember people kind of saying, like, yeah, these times, I think Sinclair still played for you guys, I think. Addy was definitely there. I think Andy was still there. I think Jiggy was still there. Like, all the big guns from wheelchair basketball were still there. And I just remember kind of hearing about you. And then the first time I probably spoke to you, I think was at the junior championships, the national junior championships. And I remember thinking, damn, this guy's good. And you look like some ragamuffin out of West London. You had a baseball cap to your right, turned to your right. You had the baggy jeans. I don't know if this was pre-Cane Row or before. This is pre-Cane Row.
I think I didn't have it then. That probably came later. I had the Wu-Tang Clan jeans.
You thought he was about it. You thought he was a real bad boy, right? And I was like, oh, and I liked it because all the other boys that I saw playing wheelchair basketball around my age group, they were all peewees. Like they were all, they weren't my guys. I was like, you know what? I don't know this Don, but I like him. I like him. Yeah, I like this guy. Yeah. And from then, we started to talk more. I'm a couple of years older than you, but we were kind of in the same age group. So we kind of eventually migrated. When was the first time you remember meeting me and our first kind of experience via basketball?
I think I don't remember that game, and I don't remember seeing you on the court. I remember the first time I met you, we went, I think it was Cardiff, to a GB junior camp.
Yes.
And they put they put the 2 cool kids together, even though we'd never met before, as far as I knew. I must have been like, I don't know, if I was 13, you're 15, or like 14 and 16, something like that.
Yeah.
That kind of, and they put us both in the same room together. We were the 2 only people that clicked that checked the DEI measure anyway.
Fully. Yeah.
Fully. And they stuck us together. And I remember actually how cool you are. I remember you had a phone. I think I didn't have a phone then. So you had a phone, and I remember you came late. I was already in the room, and I remember you coming in late, and you was like, you speaking on the phone, and I just remember the bars. I think you must have been speaking to a lady, and the bars you were giving. I'd like instantly, this guy, yes, the G. Instantly, I was like, yes. So I was glad they put us together, and I would say the rest is history, man. We hit it off straight away.
No, for sure, man, for sure. I think as the only 2, I think only Matt was the only other London-based kind of person in that squad. So I've got to let the audience know, right, that you've kind of semi-retired now, right? But you for the best part of a decade, fully retired now, okay. So you, for the best part of a decade, were the best wheelchair basketball player in your position in the world. Top 2 minimum, right? And one of the best players in the world, right? You've played in Germany, you've played in Italy, you're now living, because your last club was in Spain, right? And you've been to 3 Paralympics. And I just want to say your coolness level is through the roof, not only because you were a brilliant wheelchair basketball player, but I saw your rise. So I saw like the hungry basketballer that went from a young kid that had talent to like dedicating your life to wheelchair basketball. I remember when you didn't get picked for a few GB squads with previous managers, and you were pissed. You were pissed. And we spoke in the car bare times about just get your head down, prove them wrong, and you did that. And I think there's a message in there for so many younger people about resilience, right? There's definitely something in adversity and coming through that to reach the pinnacle of what you've reached. Just talk us through the kind of journey through wheelchair basketball, how you got into basketball first of all, but the kind of steps you had to go through to then go through three Paralympic cycles.
Yeah, man. Mad trying to think about it now. The journey, like you said, Yeah, it was definitely not a plain sailing. Like, it wasn't a straight shot. There was lots of knockbacks. Like, but I started in my local team. I became an amputee. I was 10 and did the typical thing. I'm an above knee amputee, so you're below knee. So it was a bit harder to learn to walk again, crutches, that kind of stuff. The prosthetic was harder to get into. I mean, I wasn't walking like I walk now. I was you have to kind of learn to walk again. Do you know what I mean? Becoming disabled at 10 when I was a really athletic kid, like I couldn't sit still running around. So yeah, so I went to like a wheelchair basketball road show they used to run. And then I found a local club. It was Hounslow Force at the time. It's called London Titans now. And I fell in love with it. I remember going to the first session and they had, like you said, the people that you named, Addy, Jig, Andy, Saint. They were just playing and I was just like hooked straight away. And talking about cool, that was like the first kind of Paralympic sport I saw where I saw like cool disabled people. And I was like, yo. And I just fell in love with it, man. And it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a straight journey to kind of achieving my dreams. And you spoke about resilience. But I think the biggest thing is, I think I was lucky because I found something I loved doing. Like, I loved it, man. Like, I loved the game. Like, away from anything else, I just loved the game of basketball. And that allowed me to make all sorts of sacrifices and resilience and push myself in ways, because it never felt like I was going the extra mile, even though I was just doing something I loved. And completely, it was my beloved. And when you're that committed to your beloved, like, and it loves you back, and that's, I suppose that's the lucky thing. Like, I saw results, and not results in the sense like I got picked for teams or this, that, or the other. I saw results like the game rewarded me. Like, the score would tell me at the end of the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could see myself. It didn't matter about opinions or anything like that. I could see myself like, did I win or did I lose? Or did we win or did we lose? And that was basically what drove me. And yeah, the sacrifices, like, I remember, I mean, you did it much better than me, but I was organizing nights and club nights and stuff like that in London, making ends meet or whatever as we were young. I had to give that up because I couldn't be up, because I had to be up on the, like, you know what I mean, pushing on the roads at 4:00 in the morning. So all that sort of stuff, but it didn't feel like sacrifices. It felt like devoting myself to the beloved, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does.
And I think that's what it is.
And a lot of people, guys, ask me, you know, they want to go into journalism. Oh, what's the greatest thing you've done? And I talk about, I've been lucky to have covered World Cups and Paralympics. And in my world, for a sports broadcaster, a Paralympics or a World Cup is the pinnacle. You've competed at 3 Paralympic games. Just talk to me about what it's like competing at a Paralympic games, because that is the pinnacle in your world. Like, you've won a medal as well. Like, just try and translate to our listeners and our viewers, you know, the feeling of competing in a sport that you love, but it is platformed in a way that's maybe slightly different to the Olympics because of the obvious difference in physicality.
Yeah, it's weird, you know. I loved competing in Paralympics, and each one was different. Do you know what I mean? Like, London was like, it was my first games. I had no idea what to expect. Home games, and to be dead real, I didn't really appreciate what that meant because I hadn't been to a games before. So it was special no matter where it would have been. So each of them were different. It was amazing. But for me, and even though it is the pinnacle of the sport, it's not the thing that moved me. Like, the Paralympics wasn't the pinnacle for me from my sport. For me, the pinnacle for my sport was winning the Champions League, the Champions Cup. And that was what it was. And it took me 10 years, and I think we lost like 4 semi-finals or something I lost in my career to finally get to a final and win one. And that was from, you know, when we talk about loving the game, that's what it was. But competing at Paralympics was incredible. And again, you know, where I had to not only play, I had to coach at the same time during a pandemic. Yeah, so like the coaching and playing at the Paralympics was like, for me, and again, it's hindsight, but that to me, I always felt as an athlete, I wasn't the biggest, and you'll remember this. I wasn't the
Mm,
biggest, I wasn't the quickest. Um, and when and once my once I hit a certain level, everyone was as talented as me or more talented than me, and I kind of doubled down on learning or thinking the sport or thinking the game differently to anyone else, and that's what served me. That was basically the way that I felt was my edge. And by the time Tokyo rolled around, and I had to coach because of the situation and play, but that for me was like a complete culmination of everything I'd been kind of working for. And I didn't realize, but that to me was what I was preparing for in every way that I prepared and everything else I'd been through in the sport to allow me to do that. And
hmm
if I hadn't have devoted myself to the game and doubled kind of done on my intelligence more than anything else,
hmm
I wouldn't have been able to do that. So it was kind of like kismet or whatever they say that, over 2 decades, by that time it was a third decade of being in the GB team, everything had kind of coalesced to allow me to do that,
mm.
which hadn't been done before, and to win a medal while playing and coaching. Um, it was a bless. I mean, it didn't feel like a blessing at the time because we were kind of, you know what I mean, swimming to keep our head above water, and it
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
work. But it was a blessing because for me, without that experience, I don't think I would have retired as comfortable as I did. Like I literally got to go out at Paralympics completely on my own terms, like
hmm
which doesn't ever happen to an athlete
hmm
in a team sport. Like not only playing and playing the role and playing the way that you want the team to play, but also calling the shots. It was
hmm
unique. It was challenging, but yeah, I really felt like everything that I'd done for the game and given to the game, like my mind, body, and spirit, that was essentially the game kind of saying, okay, let's see what you're about then.
And watching that and watching my friend not only be part of that, but at the center of that, Max Proud. Like my guy is the player coach for the men's GB wheelchair basketball team at a Paralympic Games, and just seeing you, because I know how your brain works and I know how smart you are just generally. But as you said earlier on, I understand. I don't know anyone that knows the game of basketball more than you. So it just it lended itself to your strengths in terms of reading the game and being able to deploy people to get a result. So for me, it was like, this is just, it was incredible. It was amazing. Guys, I remember you saying to me once a year or so ago, you said wheelchair basketball is a game, not a sport, right? And I would love you to unpack just what the difference between a game and a sport is, and what your thinking behind that statement was.
I think it is a game and a sport. That would probably be more accurate than rather than. But the reason that the game element of it is the simple fact of the classification system. But for me, it's always bothered me when it comes to wheelchair basketball. Is that you cannot? There is an artificial cap because there is a point system, and you have to equal 14 points on court,
hmm
right? So it is, and it's the reason I call it a game is because wheelchair basketball straddles this really weird line between what Paralympic sports were made for or designed for, which was rehabilitation for people, and what has become of them as the Paralympic movement has become elite athletes competing. And in a team sport where you have 14 points on court, by definition, you are playing a game with classification while you are playing a sport. And because the cap is hard, you have to play that game before you play the sport. So you can only play the sport after playing the game of classification of 14 points. So for me, I've seen athletes that have undeniably been one of the 10 best or one of the 5 best wheelchair basketball players in the country. But because they're a 4, they've never been to a Paralympics. Because you can't take all 4s. Because you have to balance it out. And therein lies the problem. And there's good things. It's not derogatory to say it's a game more than a sport, but you have to play the game of classification to allow you to play the sport of wheelchair basketball. And I would like to see a space where you don't have that in tennis, for example. You have open class and you have quads. I'd want to see what the game looks like if it was open class. Because the game would look very different if you set the line at 9.
Sorry, guys. For those that don't know what that means, just explain briefly quads and open class.
Yeah. So open class tennis is as long as you have an eligible disability to play wheelchair tennis, you're allowed to play. So that can be, it leads to, some would say unfairly, a paraplegic competing against a below-knee amputee where they are at a significant disadvantage. But it absolutely finds the best practitioner of wheelchair tennis with an eligible disability.
Sure.
So I'd like to see that with wheelchair basketball, as in have an open class competition. Because for me, the game looks the way it looks because we're playing the game of 14 points. If you made it 9, it looks different. If you make it 20, the game looks different. For me, 14 is arbitrary. The game looks this way because it's arbitrary. Whereas I would like to see it, but I'd like to kind of I'd like to have it so it's completely open class, and then you have a paraplegic class, for example, to protect that. Without going into even more details, even the paraplegic class is struggling because you have you have classifications which have hand impairments or different impairments which give them an advantage in the core, which paraplegics don't have. So it's to me, classification adds a layer of gamesmanship which I would like to remove from, and just see what the sport could look like. As long as you have as long as you have an eligible disability, put your best 5 out there.
Yeah.
Play.
I hear it.
It's not that it's a game and not a sport. It's a game before it's a sport.
Sure. I'm with you. Okay, no, I hear that. And as you've outlined, there are pros and cons to opening it up, because some people will miss out in that instance, but you get the best of the best, so therefore it can be defined truly as a sport in that sense. No, I get you. I hear you. And you're there in Spain, as I mentioned earlier on, and you've been there now for a few years. Just talk to me about, what's life living. I mean, I lived in Italy for a few years playing ball, and you've been all over Europe. What's the difference living in Spain, would you say, versus living in the UK, especially through the lens of disability?
Yeah, I mean, I live in both London and Spain, so I am kind of a bit 2 places. So it's good actually, because I get to see. Do you know what I mean? Like the things that Spain does really well, I see the lack of that in England, and the things that England does really well, I see. Do you know what I mean? I'm constantly back and forth, as you know. So I'm not permanently in Spain. I am in London. I am based in London and here. But yeah, man, I think Spain does a lot of things really, really well. Like really, really well in terms of accessibility of transport. Certainly better. The pavements are better. Like there's access to services is better. The social services run way better than they seem to run in England post the financial crash in 2008. But it's hard, because I think it's hard to say like in anything, right? Like the experience of having it in a major city like London versus, I don't know, if you lived in rural Norwich or something would be very different. And the same applies in Spain. The experience that you have in Madrid or Toledo, where I am now, or wherever, versus if you're. But generally, I find Spain to be more accessible, and with a better standard of living for most people, not just disabled people, but it certainly also translates with the way that the services and the infrastructure is around. It seems to work. It seems to be better for disabled people than it is in the UK.
That's interesting because, as I mentioned, when I lived in Italy, I found it to be significantly worse. I lived just outside Rome, a lot of time in Rome. My experience is very different. I'm very, very open about the fact that my disability is what I call minimal, right? I can do things that everyone else can do. So I'm not in a chair. I'm not on crutches.
You got a pebble in your shoe.
I got a pebble in my shoe. You know what I mean? So my mine's minor compared to most people who are disabled. But just visibly, I could see that, as you mentioned, curbs and pavements. They were so far behind what we're having here in the UK. And I just think the reason why I ask that question is because I think it's important to sometimes, when you're living in the UK and you're cussing and you're complaining and you're moaning about things that aren't to the level you would like them to be at, to remember that actually there's places that are significantly worse off, and that doesn't mean that we should accept what we've got here.
I think my experience in Italy was the same. My experience. I mean, I played just outside Milan for a few years. I also played on the Adriatic coast, and I played in Sardinia. I would say, if in terms of if I was to rank the European countries that I've played and lived in, I would say something like Spain would be number one, followed by a tie with Germany and England, and then I would say Italy.
Yeah,
in my experience.
I hear that. I want to talk now about post basketball, because I mentioned, you've got a fledgling career now as a movie star coming up. You know what I mean? Before we get to the movie star stuff, before we get to that, just generally kind of going into acting, how did that transition from athlete to being an actor come about? And as a follow-up question to that, you featured in a play about Grenfell, and it was a play that had the family members of the victims from that tragedy, the key figures from that estate played out. You played a role in that, and I came and saw it, and I thought it was amazing. And again, same way, I was so proud of you when I saw you coaching and playing at the Paralympics. To see you smashing it on the National Theatre was just like, this guy, he's really pushing my coolness. Like I mean, what's going on? This guy's really doing the thing. So yeah, talk to me about that transition from athlete to actor, and tell me about how important that play was in your life, because I know that you took that really, really seriously.
Yeah, man. It's so, in terms of the transition, it happened during the Tokyo Games. I was learning the script, so I was lucky enough to get the role of Neil on Apple TV's Extrapolations, which is the climate change series, and the director Richie Mehta, who's incredible, believed in me and took a chance. And so I was preparing. So while coaching and playing in Tokyo, I was also preparing, because 2 weeks after I got back from Tokyo, I had to go to New York to film. So I was preparing for that at the same time as well, which was nice because it gave me like a natural break. I think it was probably good. So yeah, that came about literally during the prep for Tokyo, and I fell in love with it, man. Like the same way that I fell in love with, wheelchair basketball as a 13-year-old. I literally just fell in love with it as a 36-year-old near the end of my athletic career, where, like, when you're young, I mean, it's not quite the same, because when you fall in love, your first love is always different, isn't it? Like when you're young, Love hate's different. Um, you know, you're willing to go to sleep, in your bed with a basketball. Like that's how much you love it. So I'm not going to bed with scripts and stuff.
Don't lie.
But yeah, well, I'm watching stuff sometimes. I am watching stuff. Uh, but yeah, yeah. So I mean, I did that, and I just completely fell in love with the process and how different it was. Just so I fell in love with the differences, and as mad as that sounds, it was not similar in the way that it makes me feel, or the parts of me that it allowed me to access. With sports, constantly accessing this kind of competitive, brutal side of just like efficiency, essentially, like just constantly trying to get better and better. Um, and being better means like I was psychotic enough to invent like reasons to hate my opponents in my own head. Do you know what I mean? Like reasons of why I hate them, why I have to beat them. Um, and staying in that space for a long time. And you know this, like I'm not competitive or like that off court at all. But I was just accessing that part of me for so long. And when I started acting, I got the chance to just, I mean, I've been meditating a long time, all that sort of stuff, and I just got to experience a creative side of me, which wasn't so focused on like competition, but experiencing that creative side of me, and I just fell in love with it. It felt just like it felt when I first got in a wheelchair when I tried wheelchair basketball, having not been in a wheelchair after my amputation. It felt just like that. Like it was liberating. It was freeing. There was a level of, as an athlete, I definitely used like a lot of the kind of darkness to motivate myself, dark things, because I found those to be fueling. Whereas with this, it was all light. Even the most of things, it could only be seen with light, and it was amazing to have that experience. And then that that was challenged for me. I got the chance to do something probably, I would say, one of the most meaningful things I'll ever do in my life, which was to do Grenfell in the words of the survivors, a verbatim play at the National, and then we had a chance to take it to New York at St. Anne's Theatre and tell the story, like the actual words of the survivors. And I had the privilege of playing Maher Khudair, who barely escaped. But he had to say bye to his wife and his children, and had to make his way down from the ninth floor. He has polio. He was using crutches. He fell multiple times. But just getting a chance to experience his journey and having the privilege to play that on a stage like the National. I think when I think about Paralympics, and I don't often, and I kind of feel weird doing it now, but when I think about the things I've done in my life, and I have been lucky enough to have represented Great Britain and win everything in leagues and world championships and all that sort of stuff. I think being part of that play and getting to tell the story of the survivors and to honor the victims who sadly and unnecessarily lost their life that day, it's probably the most meaningful thing I'll ever do in my life. I don't think there'll be anything as meaningful as that. To give voice to those people who still haven't, despite inquiries and the biggest fire in London since the Great Fire of London, where the most people died. The national tragedy and the stain on our great city. We're both Londoners. You've lived abroad and you've played abroad, and I do too. Wherever we go, we feel like we're Londoners. Like we say it with our chests. I'm from London. Where are you from? I'm from London. And having that stain but in some way, at least giving voice to those who haven't had their voices heard. Yeah, man, it's the most meaningful thing I'll ever do. I genuinely think that.
It was so powerful watching it, and just bringing it back to you. You were really good. You were really good. And Gaz, you're laughing because I think you're laughing because you know that I'm real enough to know that if I watched you and I didn't think you were that good, I'd probably tell you. I'd be like, Gaz, no, well done. I think you could do better than this, and do. I would tell you, and I know you would tell me.
I get notes. I know I get notes. I got notes all the time.
I would. But you were really, really good. And to be someone that wasn't a trained thespian or someone that didn't go to art school and has retrained late in their adult life to do this, and that to be your kind of, if I think I'm right in saying, your big breakout role, and to smash it so well, I think is a testament to your coolness again, and how talented you are, and some of the great things a long list of great things that you have done. So I want to just big up you for that, because what you've done there, pivoting from being a Paralympian to being someone at the National Theatre that can perform that sort of story, that's range, man. That's amazing. But it has got me thinking about something less important. That time we played basketball in Hackney, we were both hungover drunk from being out the night before.
Oh.
I mean, we both arguably had our greatest ever game. Stinking hungover. Tell the people about how actually sometimes drinking can be good and working. It can be a good thing. That was a memorable day.
Yeah, that's a young man's game, though, dude. That's a young man's move. Because if we were like that, we just wouldn't go. We just wouldn't make it. But it's funny you say that, because we were playing. I think we combined for like 80 points between us. Something
stupid, crazy.
Like it was something ridiculous.
I think it was 30 and 50.
It was your birthday.
Yeah,
something ridiculous. Like it was your birthday the night before. I'm sure it was your birthday.
I think
it was my birthday. It was
one of our birthdays. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember like I think this must have been what 2003, 4.
I don't remember, but it was a long time ago. We were out till 4 in the morning, getting drunk.
And you know what the funny thing is? JJ always mentions that even to this day. Like he saw us.
He knew.
Up, like, of course he knew. Like I was wearing a suit jacket. You had on like, oh dude, like I don't even how.
And on that vibe as well, now that you've retired from basketball, we can tell this story. The amount of times we used to sneak out at camp to go clubbing, and I used to DJ them times. So you drive me. We'd be at camp for a weekend, and then I'll be like, "Gaz, I got a gig over in Reading or something. Can you drive me?"
Oh my day.
And then you drive me. We'd come back. Nobody knew. Training the following morning.
Nobody knew. Or maybe they knew.
They just didn't care.
But they didn't say anything. Yeah. Because probably in those days, I mean, okay, bearing in mind, this is not the GB men's senior team. I didn't see that. Junior. It was the juniors. So it was the juniors. But we would sneak out. But I just remember the preparation. Like, I remember knowing that I would have to sneak out. I wouldn't park in that car park of the hospital. I'd park in the further one anyway. So no one would spot that the car is... Bro, what were you thinking?
It was bad. Good times, good times.
The track or some madness. Yes. Like, what?
But we did it. I am very aware that my into TV, right, was because Channel 4 did a scheme where they actively wanted disabled talent to front their Paralympic coverage in 2012, right? So they purposely shoehorned or they coerced this group of people from society. We want you guys to front it. I benefited from that, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. Do you feel that your disability has been a hindrance or a help in your acting career so far?
I think, like my first role, certainly it was, because I played I mean, without spoiling the show, if anyone wants to watch it, it's called Extrapolations on Apple TV. It's basically like an anthology jumps 10 years ahead every episode, giving you a slice of what the world, different parts of the world, and the things that are happening as the climate continues to change. But anyway, my episode it's basically following a war. So I play a veteran, an army veteran who was in a war, who lost his leg in a war. So for that role, it certainly helped. Like, I wouldn't necessarily have got that role without that. In other ways, is it a hindrance? Potentially. I mean, I have a project coming out later on this year where, we had a discussion about how it's also it's a sci-fi series. We had, myself and the creative team had a discussion about how we want to play it, and they left it up to me because I am lucky enough to basically have a hidden disability visibly. You can hide it just like yours, and you wouldn't know. So we had a discussion about it, and I was really grateful that they allowed me that, because they said that I go not because of my disability, but because just as an actor, it's up to me how I want to portray this character. We can either have him have a prosthetic leg in this future world or not. It's up to you, and the costume will depend. Do you know what I mean? They'll customize the thing. So in some ways it helps. I get auditions for disabled roles and non-disabled roles, so I'm lucky in that way. So I do audition for both. It's hard, dude. It's hard to say. I think there are advantages, and it's going to be like this. Reality. Having a disability is summed up perfectly by if you use a wheelchair and getting on the plane. You do get to get on the plane first. So they might let you in on the plane. But you will definitely not leave everyone else has got off. So everyone will arrive at the destination before.
Yeah, okay. Pros and cons.
So yes, you got your seat first, maybe. But you might not get to where you should be getting to before anyone else, even if you're allowed on the plane. So it's hard, but for me, from my personal experience, I got my big break on Apple TV playing a character who was an amputee.
Yeah.
Okay. Certainly.
All right. Let me end, Gaz, by asking you the question I ask all my guests. What's the dumbest thing someone has ever asked you or said to you in relation to your disability?
The maddest thing there's a few stories. So there's one which is a funny one. So I was playing in Australia, and I decided I had this thing of wherever I played, if there was a body of water, a sea or an ocean or a lake, I would always jump in that water, right? Wherever I played. If it's in Germany, I jumped in the lake that was there. If it's the Adriatic coast, I'm going in the Adriatic. If it's Sardinia, I'm going in the Mediterranean. Spain, wherever, right? So I was playing in Australia, and I was lucky enough that one of my teammates' mum had like a beach house near in Port Elliot. So I was playing in Adelaide. So we drove to Port Elliot at the time when the whales migrate. And so go whale watching. You're not allowed to go in the water's freezing. You're not allowed to go in the water when the whales are migrating, because they're teaching their calves how to swim. So they're diving, and they're quite close they're in relatively shallow water, because they're teaching, because whales aren't fish, as people know, they're mammals. So the mums actually teach the babies how to dive and do all that sort of stuff. Anyway, me being young, this is, me being in my early 20s, hard-headed. I don't care if it says no swimming. I'm gonna go in the water. I go in. It's freezing cold. I think I swim for I don't know, probably a minute, but it felt like an hour. So as I come out of the water and I'm hopping out, because I've left my prosthetic on the side, on the sand, and I've hopped into the water and I'm hopping out, I see Coast Guard and sirens. And as they come there, they think that I've been because apparently I found out later, the reason they don't let you swim there is because sharks attack these calves. So they think I've just had a shark attack and I'm hopping out with one leg, which was the maddest thing. That's the craziest reaction I've ever seen to my disability. And they were I think the only reason I didn't end up in jail was because of that, right? They would have definitely taken my ass to jail. But they were oh my God, Dude, levels, levels, levels. And I think the only reason they didn't arrest me was for that. But yeah, they were
Sympathy.
yeah, and they were screaming like, "Here is this like beast that's just like had his leg chomped off by a shark, and he's just hopping out of the water anyway." So that was a pretty mad situation with my disability, I would say. It was mad. It was mad. Shout out Tim Maloney in Australia, and also I can definitely tell the difference between when I'm walking and I have jeans on, or if I'm in a wheelchair and I don't have my leg up, of how I'm treated differently. Like I am in some part walking around. I at least feel like I'm treated like a human being. Whereas when I'm in a wheelchair, some part of my humanity is lost in the way that people interact with me. And it's really obvious. Whether that's patronizing or whether that's just not even acknowledging my existence, the spectrum is huge. But that difference is so obvious. Like it's so obvious. Like it's nuts. And I'm glad I get to see that difference because I'm lucky enough to have a disability that I can just put on the prosthetic and just walk, and no one knowing. Whereas the second I'm in a chair, some part of me, I'm no longer me.
Like
I am
else.
in some way infantilized by the chair, which is really weird, which is really strange. But I think that's what it is, rather than more than one prime example. That's what I would say.
Just before we wrap, you were the first person that said to me, you asked me the question, and I didn't know what it meant, so I pretended like I was being smart and I knew what it meant, and I realized what it meant later on, and it was fine. You said to me one time, this is like 15 years ago, Jordan, do you ever get phantom pains? I was like, no, I didn't know what phantom pains were. And you were obviously referring to those listening or watching to my stump. And I was like, oh, he meant like, do I ever feel like my leg is still there? I mean, it's not still there.
Yeah.
I was like,
you were a baby, right? Like when did they?
18 months. 18 months. So I've known nothing different.
Like,
When you asked it, I was like,
do you dream? Do you dream? When you dream, do you have a prosthetic?
I don't know, because I can't remember dreams where I've been in shorts. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. Do you?
Sometimes, yeah. Like sometimes I have this thing of like, or I'll have a lucid dream, and I don't know. There'll be like dreams are mad, right? Obviously, like, but I'll come to like a body of water, and it'll be like, oh, I've got to run across water, but I can't run on water. And then I'll look down and it'll be like some special prosthetic and I'll be able to run on the water. Or I'll be able to fly because it's got like a jetpack. So there's times when I notice, when I look down on the leg, like when I'm aware enough of my body in the dream, there are times when I have a prosthetic.
No, I've never looked at my legs in my dreams.
Yeah. No, you need to do some lucid dreaming.
I do. That's a very good question. I need to give some thought to. Listen, guys, let's now circle back to your 6.5 rating at the start of your coolness. I'm gonna say that someone that's a wheelchair basketball legend, someone that is now an actor on screen and on stage. I'm gonna say someone that has lived across Europe and further afield as well. Someone that's got I hear your dog is a very popular dog. What is your dog? Sorry, for those that don't.
My dog is a Shiba Inu. It's a Japanese breed, Shiba Inu. Look, he's gone to his little spot way back there.
I'm going to assume that's a cool brand of dog, so I'm going to say that adds to your coolness as well. Sorry, it's brand the wrong word. Sorry,
listen, you're gonna fall in love with him, dude. You're gonna fall in love. Your dog thing is gonna change.
I don't think it is, but we can try. I think all those things in the pot. I think you're being overly humble and very modest with a 6.5. So I'm gonna raise it. It's not you're not on the Jordan level yet, but I'm definitely gonna raise it beyond the 6.5 because no, there's so many amazing things that you do there. There's so many people that I meet that know of you, that love the work that you do, love how you conduct yourself, love the athlete that you were, and the man that you are. So I think coolness definitely comes out of you, and I want to thank you for your time. I love you, bro. Listen, don't forget, follow Gaz across all his socials. Keep up to date with all the work that he's doing. Follow us on our socials too. Give it a share, whack it in the WhatsApp group, like it, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. Peace.